So, selecting a topic, what you should write about. You want to find a case that you find interesting because you're going to be spending a lot of time working on this. Something that you think marked an important shift in the law, or I think the best thing to do is find a case that you think is wrong, because it's really easy to point out all the things the court did wrong. If you're just saying something a court did well, it's not as easy to get a lot of substance out of that. I just put a note in here because a couple years ago they used to assign case note topics to people, which is kind of easier in the beginning for you guys. But really, we think it's really important that you take your time and select a topic that you think is important and that you're going to spend a lot of time on. So just don't get frustrated. Take your time. Look around it. Talk to people. Talk to professors. Talk to attorneys you've worked with, and find a topic that's important to you. So a lot of people like to write about circuit splits because it's easy you get to compare some cases, what one circuit did versus what another circuit did and why that was right or wrong. I really recommend looking at Nebraska law for 8th Circuit, especially if you want to get published. We mostly publish cases on Nebraska law or 8th Circuit because that's where we are and that's the judges who are reading our stuff. And a case with a strong dissent is really helpful because if you feel like you don't know what to say about a case, it helps you guide you in the right direction. Check the news, look at published case notes from the past, just to get an idea of what it should look like. So claiming your topic, only one person can write about any one case. So if two people want to write about the same case, it's first come, first served, whoever kind of emailed me and asked for it first. However, if two people want to write about that case and you get it, you can't renege, you can't change your topic because someone else wanted that topic too. So you need to be committed if you know someone else wants that topic too. But if nobody else wants it, you could change it kind of within the first few weeks. So I'll tell you about the grading process. In November, your case note is going to be graded by 4 members of the law review, and it has to be deemed publishable by 3 to pass. And I'll be sending you guys the rubric and everything as we go through the process that they'll use so you know exactly what to expect. And everything Nate's been telling you about citations is also completely applicable to the case note because they're going to be critical of your citations as well. If it's deemed unpublishable, if it's not passed by at least 3 out of 4, you do have a chance to revise it kind of over Christmas break, and then it'll be reviewed by a new panel before different people. But in that case, you won't have a chance to run to be on the managerial board, or you won't be an executive editor for that next kind of round. You could be an executive editor eventually, but you couldn't ever be on the managerial board. And if it's still unpublishable after that, you're not kicked off law review, but you have to start all over. So most people can get through it after the 2 rounds. And my best advice, don't procrastinate. Just get started. Any questions? That was kind of fast.
Did you want to mention the defense to them, or?
Yeah, well, if your case isn't deemed publishable, your mentor acts as an advocate for your case note and defends it in front of like a panel of members, and they reconsider. I'm not exactly sure at which point in the process that actually happens, but at some point your mentor defends you. So essentially, use your mentor. All of your drafts and your outline is going to be turned in for your mentor, and they'll be giving you comments and help you along. You can ask them like, is this too broad of a topic? Is this too narrow? Just they'll help you along the way because they've all done this before. And me too. Yep.
How many are typically deemed unpublishable?
I think it depends. Last year there was 2 or 3. So, but that's if they're all publishable, they're all going to be publishable. There's no like, oh, we have to, not publish, deem publishable.
Sure.
And it's usually, maybe you could develop this argument section a little more, clean up your citations. We haven't been around that many years in the law review, but I'm not aware of anybody who wasn't able to rectify it. So, don't be discouraged. It doesn't mean your case note was awful or anything. It just means that maybe there's a few tweaks it needs.
Or if your citations are like really bad, then it's unpublishable.
Which they won't be because you'll be practicing it.
Also, anyone stating my case note, it's not in the state it was when it was turned in, so don't take that as like this is what it needs to look like. This is kind of fair. We have a question.
I was just asking, are we allowed to use outside sources besides our executive editors and managing?
Yes, you can have anybody else read it as well.
Okay.
We do want to say that you can talk to your professors or a professor about it. Maybe run one of your original thoughts by them, kind of hem and haw about it a little bit, but you're not permitted to ask a professor or somebody, you know, what they would argue. Every thought in your case note is yours. So that was an issue that came up last year. To what extent can we run it by? So yeah, by all means, find a professor that's knowledgeable in that area, run it by them, let them give you notes, but it's important that it's always your original work. Did you want to maybe show them circuitsplit.com? I don't think it's a particularly helpful website, but sometimes it's a
I
place
would
to
just
get
say,
started.
if you're not sure where to start, Google circuit splits. But I almost think that's like, it can get almost too broad. Like, you really want to focus your case note very narrowly, so just keep that in mind when you're doing that. But
Fred Abood will be here too. It'll show you on Lexis some search terms you can use.
yeah, but just start with Google is what I did.
There was one topic that I think I wanted to cover a little more thoroughly, but because I was rushing, I didn't. So if you're done, maybe I'll do that for 5 minutes, and then we'll be meeting our executive editors and doing our small break, okay?
If you have any questions you didn't want to ask in front of the
Just get your Texas manual out, and we're just going to run over M dashes and N dashes again, because some people have never heard them, and I have to say they're probably the thing that I end up correcting the most on edits. And as I was sitting here, or Sarah said, you should probably have gone over that more, because those get screwed up a lot. So I'm going to do that since we have a couple minutes till our EVs get in. We'll eventually have a 15-minute break and then some lunch. So bear with me here. I don't know where I can do this. Yeah. Okay, so if you open your book to page 12. We call M dashes because they're as wide as a typed capital letter M. Brilliant strategy. I thought it would be something more like esoteric, you know. Anyways. So, pop quiz, who knows why an N dash is named an N dash? Okay, so, and then we got hyphens. The use of these is very particular, and one thing to remember is that when we're using M dashes or N dashes to separate, say, portions of text or a range, we do not have spaces on either side of them, right? So let's just methodically here go over these rules, okay? So the M dash sets off words, phrases, clauses, or short sentences that clarify or elaborate the preceding text. There are 3 ways to make an aside when you're writing. And the 3 ways, you will choose which way. There's a rule in here that states this, and I honestly just can't remember the number off the top of my head. But it's fairly easy to remember. You can either set off an aside in text by commas, by M dashes, or with parentheses. Is that making sense? Okay. The more closely, so commas are for phrases that are very closely related to what you're talking about. M dashes are generally used for things that are a little less closely related to what you're talking about. And parentheses are for things that are the least of those related to what you're talking about. Oh, you know what? And here it is. Go to page 20, rule 1.33. So commas, or I'll give you a second, sorry. Commas set off material that is closely related to the topic of the sentence. M dashes, more loosely connected. Parentheses, distantly related. So some of their sentences here crack me up. But Rick, respectful of the watchful crocodile, approached it warily, right? Here, it had not been fed for days. A little less related. Last, now appearing regularly on the Discovery Channel. Since I'm on the topic, I would like to point you to the example on page 7, rule 1.13, semicolons. The first example, under general rule, I have sold my soul to the devil, semicolon, I spent all day and all night in the law review office. So they try to lighten the mood a little bit over at Texas. Okay, so M dashes are used. I know I'm jumping all over the place here, but now let's go back to where we started. M dashes, rule 1.26. Again, examples here, they set off phrases within a sentence. They are either bookended on either side with an M dash, or, as you may see in the second example, they are not, because they form the end of the sentence. Next we have N dashes. Numeric ranges, okay, page numbers, etc. And 1.27b is not something that pops up a lot, but if you want to sound like a really geeky, smart grammar person, this is something you can point out to people at grammar parties. If you are using two modifiers of a word that modify each other, you use a hyphen. But if they are of equal weight, do not modify each other, you use an N dash. So the Mason-Dixon line, right? Mason is not modifying Dixon, Dixon's not modifying Mason. You use an N dash there, okay? So 1.27b gives you an example, okay? Attorney-client privilege. U.S.-Mexico relations, okay? That stands in contrast to Rule 1.29a, hyphens and compound modifiers. So if you're saying long-range plan, right? Long is modifying range. So, and both are modifying plan. So long range there will be separated by a hyphen, not an N dash. Also, hyphens are used in compound nouns, nation state, fact finding, email, etc. A lot of times your word processing software will just automatically make things be a certain one, and it's almost always wrong, so do not rely on that. It's also true for ellipses. Again, you can set up a lot of this stuff as keyboard shortcuts. Huge time saver. Please do that. I am not qualified to tell you how to do that. It took me a while to figure it out, but I'm sure you can. Let's see here. Okay, be careful, page 16, be careful to distinguish between compound modifiers and single words that modify a compound word. Okay. And they give you some very detailed examples here. And you can see that this book, it seems small, but it just covers a lot. It gives you really on-point examples. This was written by other law review students who know what kind of questions pop up, so it tends to always have on-point answers for what you need. Okay, hyphens with prefixes. There are some particular rules as to when we do and do not use hyphens for prefixes. Excuse me. So as a general rule, you don't. That's the general rule. But then there are particular instances where you do. And those will be listed there. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure we had covered that because that crops up a lot. Let me see if we have some executive editors here yet. Hey, good morning. Okay, so these are the executive editors for our current term of issue 1 and 2. There will be some change in the executive editors for issues 3 and 4. And if you guys just want to introduce yourselves, say hello.
Okay, I'm Michael Sands.
I'm Samantha Ritter. I'm Jennifer Donnell.
Brian Fahey.
I'm Jenny May.
Now you all should have been emailed your spading assignments. You all should know who your spaders are. Those of you who are spading with Sarah Neat will be working with Brian because she's not here today. Brian and Sam's spaders are not here. They're out of town, so he's free to help you all out. And Sam will be here, so Brianna and Craig, Sam will be able to answer any questions you have, and there's a video camera set up so you can just anticipate questions people might have.
If you haven't gotten an email, you probably assigned to me because I forgot to do that.
Okay, if you didn't get an email, go with Jenny. Question?
No, I was one of the, I didn't have one, so.
Oh, that answers it.
Yeah.
I might have given you a little more time than you needed. 45 minutes is a lot, so just to be thorough, and then you're gonna have a break, stretch, do what you need, and then we'll be back here at noon, lunch on the house, how to research your case note, and then hopefully get you out of here a little bit earlier. So, have fun.
Do you just want us to come in here?
Yeah, just pick rooms, you know, you can hang out there, go in the library. I probably should have reserved some. No one's in any of them, so if you want to ask the circulation desk.
Yeah. What do we need? What do we need to bring?
Just bring everything.
Is it okay if I just bring my iPad?
Yeah. You can do it.
I'm just bringing it all. Because you never know. Rule number
Yeah,
one,
that camera there.
be prepared. Yeah.
I don't think it's too much stuff.
This is Brianna. She's in Colorado. She's in South. So you might be asking her lunch. Oh, we want to Oh, you know, neither of us are from there. I'm showing them the big accident. 10:30 at night.
Sorry, who did you say Sarah?
Oh, Brian.
Brian?
Yeah. He's glass wearing
Yeah.
fellow.
Thank you. Do you want to come with?
No, I'm with you guys. Okay, well, I guess I have my See you, I'll talk to you later.
Seems to be.
Well, Craig Bender, he would be in
I know
Denver.
some people in,
Yeah, since they're going through the internet, then they'll be going with Sam because they're not here. So you've only got
perfect,
2 people to work with today.
all right. Great, I checked that.
So if you want to introduce yourself, Jenny will be your speaker.
Hi, Craig. You're in our group, but you're in Denver. Sorry.
Okay, I'll get out of your hair
Sounds good, thanks.
Yep.
Is their mic just coming off of your computer? Is it louder anywhere? Can I bring it over here?
here. Yeah, it just depends if you want them to see the screen.
Oh, good
So that's up to you, but yeah, it's just plugged in.
Okay.
And then there's a microphone and camera there. So.
Sounds good, thank you.
Yep.
Hey guys. Hi. I'm Sam, by the way. Hi, Craig. Hi, Brianna. Oh, Brianna, I think I have you.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Did you get my email today?
I did.
Perfect. Okay, so I am going to be teaching you guys how to spade.
Okay.
And I'm glad that you guys are here so I'm not just talking to an empty room. It makes me feel a little better.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I never got an email from anyone.
Okay, you have Jenny. Jenny's going to be your executive editor, and she's going to send you an email here in the next couple minutes. I think she forgot to send it out, so you'll be getting one pretty soon here.
Okay, cool.
But I will try to explain it the best I can without you having it, but I'm hoping that you'll get it during the process so that I can help a little bit better. Also, can you guys see the screen okay?
Yeah, sort of. It will depend what you put up.
Okay. All right, I'll ask every time I put something up there to make sure you guys can see it okay. Okay. Whoop, it's not what we need. Okay, so I'm going to be giving you guys a crash course in spading, and I'm going to be using the documents that I sent out to my spaders, so just kind of try to translate that to the documents that you've gotten, and hopefully I can help you out a little bit. So, as of this point, minus any of Jenny's spaders, you guys will have all received 4 documents. Those documents are going to be a spading memo, a spading worksheet, a clean version of your article or note that you're going to be spading, and a source locator. If you haven't received a source locator, that might just be somewhere else, and I'll get to that in a minute. So starting off, there's just a couple things that you're going to be responsible for as a spader. Number 1 is going to be the footnotes, and number 2 is going to be the text of the article. I'm going to go ahead and start with the footnotes just because I think it's really the most important part of the spading process. Spaders are going to be the ones that actually dig into each individual footnote, and you guys are going to be the only ones that really analyze those footnotes to make sure that they're correct. So my first recommendation is when you start the spading process is to either look through your article or look through your case note and basically just read through it so you have a general idea of what's going on in the article and you understand kind of the author's process and thinking process and make sure you know what's going on. After that, you're going to start with your footnotes or your text. It's up to you, but I usually start with the footnotes. You're going to be responsible for 2 things in regard to your footnotes. That's going to be authority and support and also proper Blue Book format. So starting with authority and support, I'm going to pull up right now a spading worksheet. So this is an example of a spading worksheet. Can you guys see that up on the screen? Not really. Craig, have you gotten your spading worksheet from Jenny yet?
No.
Okay.
Forward him the one you sent me just so he has a reference.
That would be awesome. I would really appreciate that. I'll keep going and then hopefully you'll get that in a couple of minutes here, but I'll try to explain it the best I can without it also, just in case someone else might not have theirs. So this is going to be an example of a spading worksheet, and what's happened is I've taken all of the footnotes from the applicable note or article, and I've put them into the document. And so each one will have its corresponding footnote number, and then the footnote is posted right next to it. So starting with the footnote of your section, so in your spading memo that you'll have received or you will receive, it's going to lay out that you're going to be responsible for a certain range of footnotes. You're also going to be responsible for the text accompanying those footnotes, but we'll get to that in a minute. So for this person, it looks like they're going to be responsible for footnotes 180 through 256. So looking through this, you're going to start at the top of your document, wherever your range of footnotes starts. And what you'll do is you're going to start with that very first footnote, and we're going to start with authority and support. So your executive editors at this point have pulled all of the physical sources from the articles or the notes, and so they're going to provide you with them. Either the electronic sources will probably be in a Google Drive or another type of folder that your executive editor has provided you with. And then the physical sources will be available on the law review shelf in the law library. I know that you guys are out of town, and so for those physical sources that you might be responsible for, shoot your executive editor an email and just let them know that you either won't be able to get to those or they're just not available to you, and then your executive editor and you can figure it out from there. But what you're going to do is for each source that's cited on your spading worksheet, you're going to go find that source, and you're going to check the source for authority and support. So you need to go into that source, whether it be the sentence, the paragraph, the page, or the entire article in general, and you need to make sure that that citation actually supports what the author is saying. And that's actually really important for the credibility of the law review, just making sure that what the author is actually saying is correct and it's supported by the citation that they've cited to. The next thing that you're going to do is, once you've made sure that it actually supports the statement, is you're going to check it for accuracy. So in regard to accuracy, if, for example, an author has quoted something from the source, you need to find that quotation in the source and make sure that it's been perfectly transposed from the source into the note or article. When doing that, it's really tedious, but you need to make sure that every single word, go through that entire quotation and make sure every single word is correct, every single word is spelled properly, and every single word came directly from the source. Or if they made any alterations or omissions to the source, that it's in proper Blue Book format. So that's basically the authority and support process, and you do that for each and every citation, each and every footnote that you're responsible for. The next step that you're going to take is proper Blue Book format, and proper Blue Book format is huge. This is probably the biggest part of the spading process. Like I mentioned before, you guys are going to be the only ones who really dig into these footnotes and make sure that they're perfectly correct in proper Blue Book format. So going through them, you're going to look at each citation, and in your spading worksheet that I have pulled up here, what you'll do is you'll highlight the applicable footnote that you're spading, and you're going to make a copy of it, and paste it right below, in the same box, but right below the footnote that I put in there or your executive editor put in there. And then any changes that you're going to make to that footnote, you make to the copy that you just made. So you'll copy and paste it right into the same box. Any changes that you make to your pasted version of that footnote. Don't make any changes to the original footnotes so that the executive editors can see what changes you've made. In your spading memo, also your executive editor will have basically addressed how they want you to make your changes, and it might differ a little bit by executive editor. For me, I ask my spaders to highlight any changes that they make in different colors based on different changes. In addition to that, every spader is responsible for citing to the applicable Blue Book, Nebraska Law Review, or Texas Manual of Usage and Style rule for each change that they make. And like I said, most of this is all going to be addressed in your spading memo, but that's really important because the executive editors are going to go back through there and make sure that all of your changes are correct and consistent with the other spaders, so we need to know what rules you used to determine that you needed to make that change. That's about it for footnotes. Do you guys have any questions at this point?
Do you print out everything that's sent to you? Like, do you print out the clean version,
Um,
hard copies, or?
No, you don't have to worry about that. If you want to print out a clean version of the article to read through it, that's totally up to you, but the rest of it is all going to be done electronically. You basically make all of your changes to the documents that your executive editor sent to you, and then just email them back to your executive editor. I believe the due date's July 7th.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you are making a note about the authority and support, like if it's not correct,
Mm-hmm.
you just say that in the box there?
Yes, that's perfectly fine. Highlight it, whatever it is that you think is incorrect, and then just comment on it. Explain why it's not correct. And if anything, basically what you're going to do is if you can find a way to change it so that it is correct, go ahead and make those changes. You don't want to just comment on something if it's not correct, if it's like a word, because you're going to be completely editing these footnotes, and it's totally up to you to make all the changes. We just want to know what changes you've made. So if there's a way to make a change so it's correct, do it. If it's too much, like you can't even find it, that quote isn't even in the source, then just make a note of it, make a comment, and then we'll take care of it from there. Anything else? Okay. So moving on from that, I am going to show you my article here. Okay, so my article's up on the screen. So, like I mentioned, in your spading memo, you'll be responsible for a certain range of footnotes. Of those footnotes, you're also going to be responsible for the text that accompanies the footnotes. So for the editing process, what you're going to do is say you're responsible for footnotes 1 through 50. That means that you'll look into the article and you'll start with footnote 1, you'll look up footnotes 1 through 50, and you'll be responsible for all the text that those footnotes accompany. So what you do for the editing process of text is essentially you're going to read through the whole thing and you're going to make any changes that you think are necessary pursuant to Nebraska law review rules, and like I said, we use the Texas Manual on Usage and Style. Make any changes that you think are necessary to be in compliance with those two basically rule books, and then any other grammatical changes that you think are necessary. Everything that you do in regard to making changes, you're going to use the track changes function in Microsoft Word so that the executive editors can see what it is that you've changed, what it is that you've done. Track changes, if you've never used it, is just on the Microsoft Word ribbon above the document under the Review tab for a Mac. I'm not sure if that's the same for a PC, but it should be pretty easy to find. You'll just see track changes, you click on. That way, any changes that you make they'll show up in red or blue on the document for the executive editors, and we can go through and either accept or reject them as we think is necessary. In addition to just editing the text, you should also make any comments on any language that you think needs improvement in regard to making it more clear for the reader, or any reasoning that you don't think is necessarily sound. Make any of those comments on the side panel, and we can relay those to the authors so that they can decide if they want to make those changes or not. But a lot of times the authors really appreciate that. They think it's helpful that there's maybe some inconsistency in their writing or something that's not exactly clear, but they know that they can make it more clear, and they'll implement those changes accordingly. Let's see. In addition to that, I think that's about it for the text. Do you guys have any questions about that? No? Okay. Cool. Well, that's about the end of the spading process. If you have any questions, definitely up front, make sure you send an email or call your executive editor, just so that you make sure that you get that stuff figured out right at the beginning. It's a lot easier to ask questions right away so that you know how to keep going than it is to say at the end, well, I didn't know how to do this, so I just did something else. That just makes a lot more work for the executive editors, and it's just definitely better to ask any questions that you have up front, and we're all here to help. So any questions that you have actually probably will make it easier on us, because we can make sure that we shoot out an email to everyone saying, like, we had a really good question, and this is how you go about doing this if there's any anything that's not clear. So other than that, I think that's pretty much the end of the crash course on spading. But let me know if you guys have any questions or anything like that going forward.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
If, our spading has to be satisfactory, I think is the phrase that they use, but what does that mean?
Basically, your executive editor, if you do a really, look through the entire document, if you make sure that you follow your spading memo and you make all the changes that you think are necessary, like if you're going through it and you're just missing things because you didn't do it as well as you could have, then that might be rendered unsatisfactory. But for the most part, if you're doing everything that the spading memo tells you to do, you're going to be fine. But just do your best. Like I said, you guys are the only ones that look through these footnotes, and so it's really important. Your guys' job is super important to the credibility of the law review. Just making sure that all those footnotes are proper Blue Book format and making sure that they're all supporting the author's statements. So it'll be satisfactory as long as you do everything that you can to make sure that everything you've done is correct. I mean, if you don't do half of it, that might be unsatisfactory. But other than that, just do your best. Anything else? Cool. Well, I am going to leave you guys in here. I'm sorry. I think you guys reconvene in maybe at 11:45, but I think they might start before that just because I don't think we need necessarily 45 minutes to go over the spading process. But if they come back earlier than that, I'll try to let you guys know. So, otherwise, break until 11:45.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Thanks, guys.